Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to week two, block two of our second group of Blockheads 5. Our designer this week is Lisa Bongean, and she has designed this awesome All-Stars block using lots of half square triangles, but it turns out so cute when it's all done. This is my finished block, and I am going to walk you through some of the steps that I took to make this block and give you a few little tips. And also don't forget to check out Lisa's YouTube tutorial and blog post for her tips and tricks for making this block. All right, let's get started. Our cutting instructions this week are pretty straightforward, just lots of little squares. I'm making the 6-inch finished blocks for my blockheads this time around, so I'm going to be using these cutting instructions. So I'm going to need eight 2-inch squares for my A fabric, so that's this light blue, 16 2-inch squares for my B fabric, which is this kind of dark brown color, 8 2-inch squares for my C fabric, which is like the main star, and that's this kind of gold fabric, and then 4 1.5-inch squares out of that same fabric. So I've got all my squares cut, and the instructions for this block are pretty straightforward. We're just going to make lots of half square triangles. I'm going to do my half square triangles a little bit differently. So the instructions call for marking a line and sewing a scant 1/4-inch seam on either side of that line, cutting on your marked line and pressing open for your half square triangles. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut all of my squares in half on the diagonal. I just find that it's easier for me to do chain piecing that way. And I also starch my fabrics heavily so I don't run into any issues sewing on that bias. You'll also want to check out Lisa Bongean's video this week. She's going to show her method for making half square triangles using her triangle papers. All right, so I'm going to cut my squares in half on the diagonal, not these. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain piece all of my triangles together per the instructions to make my half square triangles. Okay, I've got my stacks of triangles here. They're all paired up right sides together. So now I can just take these stacks over to my sewing machine and I'll just sew a scant 1/4-inch seam right along this line. I've got a nice pile of half square triangles here, and I'm going to press them open and trim them down according to the pattern instructions. So since this is going to be for the 6-inch finished block, I'm going to trim these to 1.5 inches. Okay, I've pressed open my half square triangles. I pressed towards the darker triangle, and now it's time to trim down. This is my 1.5-inch line on my ruler here. So you see I have a little bit of overage. So the pattern instructions are written so that you can, these half square triangles are slightly oversized and you can trim them down. So you don't need to size up your squares when you're cutting them. They're just cut them just as they're written in the pattern, and you'll be able to have they'll be a little bit oversized so that you can trim down. Okay, I have all of my half square triangles trimmed, and now I'm ready to lay them out and start sewing them together. So I've laid them out in a little unit of 9 pieces, 8 half square triangles and that one center D square, just like this. And I'll sew these together to make 1 unit, and then I'll repeat that we're going to make 4 units total. So I do that because I think it's a little bit easier to sew together these units. You have fewer seams to match up than to sew across like a long row, but you can absolutely sew them by rows if that works better for you. It's your choice. But I'm going to sew these together in 4 units. So let me stitch this first one together. Okay, I've webbed all of my rows together, as you can see. So I chain pieced these all. So now I'll press these open and sew the rows together. Normally I would probably just finger press and then sew. That's the benefit of webbing everything together. But these are so small, there's so little real estate here that I'm probably going to go ahead and just press them just so I can get every little bit of room to sew. So I will make my my seam allowances and I'll end up with the right size. I'm going to press these the top and bottom row of my unit this way, so I'll press the seam towards the A, B half square triangles. And then for the center rows, I'm going to press the seams towards that center square. And then everything will nest, my seams will nest nicely. So we're making good progress. I've got my units pressed open now, the seams on these units pressed open. And now I'm going to just give them a quick little trim, make sure that they are what they're supposed to be, which is for the 6-inch blocks, 3.5 inches. So I'm going to just make sure that they're the right size, trim them up a little bit if I need to, and then I will sew the units together. And I will also press those seams open. And here it is, my finished all-star block. I just love how it turned out. Thank you so much, Lisa, for a fantastic pattern. This one was so much fun to make. Be sure to check out her tutorial. Like I said, she's going to be showing how she uses her triangle papers to make these half square triangles. So that's a fun technique that you might want to try. I hope you've enjoyed this week's block, and I can't wait to see your creations. Don't forget to post them on our Facebook page and on Instagram, and tag us, Moda Fabrics, and hashtag Moda Blockheads 5. See you next week.